California is a racing wasteland right now. The KBMF was designed as all motor stuff, and then the TLRC for the B could be used all motor or boosted. Even as an all motor cam, it's better than what's out there.
I'll screw up the wording, but it's been said a million times. If we all went back to naturally aspirated, you'd find out who knew what. You know,
if you tell anybody, we have to cut your heart out.
What variety of Asian are you?
I don't know. The high kind, right? According to the industry. What other things do we want to show in terms of these cycles?
The rest of the cycles. So we covered the exhaust, we covered the intake, and we really just, I think we could walk through the power cycle before and after the power cycle, right? Because that's sort of the core of producing power through these 4 cycles. So
we talked about the cylinder pressure and how many degrees of rotation, like the examples you guys gave on a turbocharged or naturally aspirated engine, and the nitrous engine is different as far as time under pressure. But
probably talk stroke, right? And how stroke affects that cylinder fill or even those compression events. Like, one thing that you always see, and maybe a lot of times guys don't know, is if you have 2 domes, let's just say you have 2 9cc domes, one on a 99 millimeter stroke and one on a 108 stroke, what the difference in compression is and why there's a difference in compression. I think that illustration probably does a good job of...
Right, because you have the piston speed and piston volume.
Correct.
Man, you can really geek out about the production of cylinder pressure. And I appreciate you saying that 270 number earlier, because I always listen to those engines when I go up to Maryland, and I was always curious how they got some snap in them.
Well, I think the last Honda day Jamie went to, people heard my engine. It doesn't sound the same, right? People heard Jamie's engine.
Yeah. How much different does it perform?
It is an entirely new learning curve of, and I tune 3/4, probably 80% of the entire all motor class. I mean, I've probably tuned more all motor Honda K series than I think anyone in the history of the K. And this particular engine, it's completely different. Everything's different. The way it reacts. So we go to the track, and your first pass, it sounds like, we just haze the tire. I'm launching the car completely different. I'm tuning the car completely different. It's just...
Isn't it crazy how stroke makes the engine behave differently?
Oh, insanely different, yeah.
I got a buddy that's got this big Pro Mod thing, and the spare engine has a 1/4 inch less crank, and he said it shakes less at idle.
Yeah.
It's like the aggression is real.
The aggression is real. Air speeds. What we're seeing now is Dave and I have been playing around. He'll start to show you where some of the industry found power in, right? So these 37 millimeter valves that we touched on, and they're really concentrated on that name of the port leading to the throat, looking for air speeds. They're chasing the velocity, right, for that cylinder fill. In the past, guys have tried something close, not as extreme, and they lost power. So they immediately went back to but they forgot to optimize everything else around it. The throttle feeding it, the cam timing events, all these other things. And we're treating it as especially on methanol, where in the older days when they were using ethanol, it really wasn't a problem. Port volume wasn't a problem. But now you're putting 10% more volume than you would on ethanol using the methanol. Now you have less room for air to actually travel into the
Yeah.
cylinder. So we've been playing that game, and it's just been pushing the RPM band further and further right. And I mean, at about 1,000 RPM, right before my shift point, I'm probably making a lot of wheel horsepower more than the entire class. But I make a lot less
Yeah. Do you have a throttle servo or a cable?
cable, but we're moving over to a servo and like a slide type ITB to actually use as our form of traction control. Where
Yeah,
instead
I
of
was when you were talking about making runs earlier, that because the such a small percentage of throttle angle is such a big amount of power on a car like yours. Like you could neck down 15% throttle and really numb it, until the tires catch up.
it's just it happens so fast. Like I'll send you a picture, or I don't know if you use Fuel Tech at all. I'll send you one of the logs of some of our launches, and it is like even with some of the time based strategies, the minute it gets out of the cut and actually has the ability to free rev, it just starts to climb. Tire gets out of control again, and it's like, again, we're defying physics trying to drive a front wheel. It's hard enough controlling a front wheel drive car. Now you put that type of power NA behind it, where too much ignition interruption will completely kill the run, or kill the car because you don't make any torque. And then not enough. It's like a two stroke banshee. I mean, that's the easiest way for me to describe it. The thing feels and sounds like a banshee.
Why would you? Did you move to a fuel tech for a specific reason?
Yeah, so originally I moved to the Fuel Tech when we were still playing around with nitromethane. So we were the first front wheel drive stock chassis Honda to go eights, technically NA, using nitromethane years ago, like back in 2017. And that sort of drove this whole thing with everyone starting to move to nitromethane. And again, we found some limits of our current ignition systems, the CDIs, right around like 600 horsepower. So like my same engine that makes 400 on methanol would make like 650, 700 on 70% nitro.
Yeah.
Then we started exploring more with the game of volume, putting 70, 80% methanol, but now through 8 injectors or 12 injectors, and we needed a. So I reached out and had a company for now the 4 cylinder cap for my engine, and the only ECU that could trigger on that edge without having to use a grid was the Fuel Tech. Fuel Tech still has a legacy output
Okay.
that can trigger on the edge to actually control and the lower.
Okay.
So, but that
But
was
you can't ride a slip aim in a fuel tech.
yeah, we can do front to rear bias. It's just like we can set it up very similar to the Motec.
Okay.
The active traction strategies are awesome. It's just the problem is going out there and testing. It's like when we got the setup together, it's like I'm like, okay, I have all this data from all these other cars and all the other guys at the very top of the class, and it's like none of that applied. It's like none of the launch strategies worked. Even some of the slip targets where I had to soften the ignition cut because the fact that I don't make the torque like the other guys, for me to recover off that ignition cut, it's like the car would just die.
Yeah.
But you're like riding the fine line where now we just need a clutch. So we reached out to Pro Stock team and some of their clutch designers, and Dave actually has a clutch being designed now. We're just gonna have to use a clutch. Use a clutch in combination with some
What
software.
happened to that? What happened to that Brazilian slipper clutch that showed up 5, 6, 7 years ago? It had
Still,
little fingers.
still around. Yeah, they with the locking levers, it's still around.
Does it work?
The centrifugal, it does. We don't have an easy way to monitor input shaft speeds to tune those things correctly. So guys kind of throw them in there. They don't take them out between runs and adjust them. So they just figured they were junk and moved on. But we're circling right back to that.
Yeah. You get that sorted, you're going to be
Oh yeah, that's
righteous.
literally that's all the car needs at this point. It's like we're not going to be able to do it with tire. We're not going to be able to do it with ballast. We're going to take the ballast out. We're right at the weight limit. Thing weighs 1,800 pounds on the nose.
What's the first gear ratio? And the final is what?
For right now, Dave made a custom 6 for me.
Yeah, it needs a clutch.
Needs a clutch, yeah.
It's a clutch.
BMF TLRC stands for Bad Mother Twin Lobe Roller Cam. History favors the bold.
I'm Aaron Lopez, and I run Skunk2's BMF TLRC.
My customers are going on the track and they're flying, and I'm struggling to get down the track for this one event because it's just so different. It's so raw. It's very snappy.
Yeah, he's outside of his current range right now. Like, he's already moved past the extreme upper bookend, so everything else has to change.
There's not a displacement limit in that class.
It's not making power because of displacement. Like,
I'm asking.
yeah, there is. They have their rules. Sorry, Jamie, I cut you off, but I just
No, it's so where I have data from all these other cars of the same stroke for launch points, for shift points, for all the above traction strategies is completely different. I sort of had to go back to the drawing board. And one thing's for sure, the mile an hour is there, which tells us one thing, that the car is making the power. It's just, everything that's out there for parts, what everyone else uses just doesn't work for this application anymore. And we're just slowly chipping away at optimizing all of these things: gearing, traction strategies, clutch, injection strategies, you name it.
Right on.
Yeah, I like in our original smoke show thing, I said the mile per hour tells you everything. That tells you the kind of power you're making.
Yeah.
You're pushing so much resistance after 120 miles an hour that power's going to win.
What's the mile an hour split right now between your new setup and your old setup?
Roughly 3.5 mile an hour, almost 4 mile an hour.
That's solid, considering what you're up against.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the thing that I'll screw up the wording, but it's been said a million times. If we all went back to naturally aspirated, you'd find out who knew what, because you have to work so hard naturally aspirated versus forced induction stuff.
Right.
The nitrous guys work hard too.
Yeah.
But turbochargers, it's really pretty simple game.
Yeah, turbocharger, the mentality is like I've never seen any big advancements in any turbocharged stuff, that stem from the engine. It's always like, here, there's a new turbine, or there's new better materials, or things like that. I haven't actually seen people address the really spend time to address the efficiency of the engine. Beyond head porting, that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, you had different crowds got into different things. But there was never a situation where you had the naturally aspirated guy. Like, I know a couple guys that do cylinder head work, and now there's forced induction guys seeking them out to build the best naturally aspirated engine, so then they can put boost to it. But for a long time, we just got to be pretty lazy.
Yeah, well, when you got boost, you can shove everything through holes that are way too small and think that it's making good power, right?
Yeah.
And then once things start to flow, it's like, oh, my boost went down. It's like, no, your restriction went down.
Yeah.
You see that with a K and a B. You take equal turbochargers, like the class legal 7285 from Precision. The boost levels that you can achieve in the B series, you can't achieve in a K. And guys say, hey, that's the B is king, the K sucks, and it's like, because no one has gone through and worked through the problem sets. It's just a turbocharger that's better optimized for air flowing cylinder head.
Yeah. When that happened, whenever I got to brush lightly in the Spot 4-wheel drive years ago, and there was a couple guys that had tried the K, and the boost was down, the turbos were grossly oversped. I mean, the air pump, it's a superior air pump. It just needed more turbo. It needed more airflow. It's really a fantastic engine. If I could have a 4 liter one of those things, I would be super stoked. Or a 6 liter would be pretty great.
So you're coming out Friday, right?
I land Friday morning, and then I
Oh,
go up to El Mirage,
okay.
and it's a
Yeah.
pretty neat place. It's like a Burning Man for car guys.
We always do like our side by side stuff. We go out there to do top speed runs
Yeah,
because we make gears and boost and stuff like that, and it's the safest place to do speed runs. Like
yeah.
we,
No,
we
it's pretty fantastic.
we've tried it in different places, and it can get sketchy if it's not flat.
Yeah.
I think I had the Prius out there at 100 miles an hour too. So,
Jesus Christ. Hey, next time, can we talk about chain versus belt?
you want to lead that discussion? I could just tell you about problems. I can't tell you where the limits are at.
No, I don't want to know the limits. I want to know the design advantages. Obviously, there's a service component that goes into one versus the other. I want to hear your 2 cents on harmonics and the exhaustion of noise, and how does a different timing belt, does a Joey's triple Kevlar timing belt truly outperform an OEM Honda timing belt? Jamie, are you watching cam sync position on your Motec, and how things are changing through the course of a run, belt versus chain, just stuff like that.
That would be a good test for the Spintron. Like when I have a time to put the B back onto the Spintron, we can do an OEM belt and we can do a Kevlar belt and we can just spin it and see how much lag or stretch there is going on.
Yeah, I'm interested in that.
We have some cool data we can share with J2 on what we found with the current chain limitations and tensioners. And Dave's got some pretty cool poly timing covers that he's going to set up on a spin
Yeah,
drum
I have these clear acrylic covers. I showed you. I think I showed you. Clear
Yeah,
cover.
I think you did. Hey, are the cam sprockets on the K series, are they round?
Yeah.
The Coyote ones are oblong.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's like Shimano BioPace chain rings on bicycles.
Yeah, exactly. It's to level the chain out as it's getting yoked around.
Yeah.
The pulses of the chain, I guess.
Oh, there's more mechanical advantage that way.
Yeah.
Dave, you have done something in the industry. Okay, let me back up a little bit. Back in the day, my uncles and my dad and all them, they would buy a turbo cam, right? For whatever their 383 stroker is. They had their own theory behind it. Dave, on the other hand, from learning and being with him for some time, even seeing the Pro Series cams, the Pro 1, Pro 2, right? A lot of people came out thinking that was an all-motor or naturally aspirated type of cam, as well as these new BMFs, because Dave kind of focused on BE. But seeing the cam going out to market now, we're seeing people using them in turbo applications. So I want you guys to talk about, maybe it's a myth, this turbo cam element, that VE is the true route to horsepower.
Because the Grand National comes to mind. The Grand National always had less duration on the exhaust, but they were fairly small turbine and terrible engines with very little cylinder head flow. So I always assumed they were doing that because of um, how poorly the engines fill. Because if you take a Grand National and you look at the VE map, it's like in the 80s, with reasonable injector scaling, So we talked about the best naturally aspirated engines. Like the K is a better engine than a B, so it makes a better turbo engine once you sort it. But when you're working with a turbocharged engine versus an NA engine, and you're looking at these catalogs that have turbo cams versus NA cams, what does your experience tell you about the two different types of engines and what they may require for cam timing?
I would say the main difference would probably be just in the overlap area. I mean, your close point's still going to be about like the higher performance the engine, the turbo engine, the closer the cams are actually going to look like all motor cams. Right. So like all these drag race guys with the Honda stuff, they're using like you're at what'd you say, 234, 238, right? These race guys are at 265 at one,
Right.
260, 265 at one. So it's obviously bigger, right? The area I would be just focus on a little bit more is the overlap, so there's not too much overlap, so you're not contaminating the intake charge.
Right.
Maybe blow it down a little bit earlier, but I don't know
Because you have the advantage in an NA application for exhaust scavenging.
I need it to start my intake charge, even if it's just a little bit, just to kind of kickstart the motion type of thing.
Okay.
Right. So another thing, like, look at the naturally aspirated engine as a boosted engine. It boosts 1 atmosphere, right? The cylinder starts out in negative depression, so it's rushing in at 14 pounds.
Right.
Right. So minimum, the air going in is going in with 1 atmosphere of pressure.
That would be pretty cool because we have a real world illustration, in like when you go to the World Cup, the air gets so good, that you've got
conditions.
Yeah, like a spectator may hear mine shaft air 100 times over the course of a weekend at World Cup, right? But what does it mean?
Minus 1,000 DA,
sure,
45 degrees,
sure. But an engine like yours, Jamie, is probably up 30 in that air over August in Florida.
Roughly, yeah. We see it if the tune-up's right, yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, East Coast conditions, we don't see that out here. California is a racing wasteland right now. Sorry, all you California people, but
yeah, it's it's sad because that's where it all began. So, if you had a good enough engine, your turbo cam and your NA cam would be very similar, minus some overlap changes.
Yeah. So my exhaust open point might be a little bit different. My exhaust close point, wouldn't be. I wouldn't have a ton of exhaust overlap. I might open the depending, like if it needs it, I might open the valve earlier, the exhaust valve, to blow it down more, and then obviously the intake, because there's air pushing behind it. I don't need overlap because there's boost.
The cam that you're calling the BMF cam, that's an aspirated aim cam.
Yeah, they were originally designed. So the K stuff, the KBMF was designed as all motor stuff, and then the TLRC for the B could be used all motor or boosted, because even as an all motor cam, it's better than what's up there.
Right. Right.
But like that cam is only about 265 duration at 1, I think, somewhere around there.
Oh. I think on the plane ride out, I'm gonna stare at some K series camshaft numbers.
Yeah,
because it's a pretty far departure from where I'm at.
You come, I'll show you the secret sauce.
Perfect.
But if you tell anybody, we have to cut your heart out.
I'm pretty well insured, so I think I'll be fine.
That's an easy way to win, for your wife to win the lottery, right?
I know, but I'll need you to manage it, because if she blows it all in a year, she's gonna be in trouble.
We're me and her, we're planning already, so you just wait.
What
when you least
what variety of Asian are you?
I don't know, the kind, right? According to the industry.
Perfect.
All right, so we'll leave it at Dave's sign. I'm cool with that. I'll wear those laurels however long you need me to wear them.
All right,
hey guys.
All right,
Jamie.
All right.
See you later.
Later.
All right, I'm out. So what are we doing?
What do I want to do, or what are we doing?
What do you want to do?
I want to talk about the JZ cams.
2 JZ cams?
Two JZ
cams. Talk about, like, how deep are we getting into this?